What's up, guys? David DeCelle here, your host of the Business with the Boys podcast. And we have a special one for you today. We have Brian Clayton, who he started mowing lawns as a teenager with a push mower. And 20 years later, he's the CEO of GreenPal, which is the app that Entrepreneur Magazine calls the Uber for lawn care. Before GreenPal, Bryan built one of Tennessee's largest landscaping companies, growing it to over 10 million a year in revenue before selling it. And now he's doing it again, this time with technology. And it's really cool seeing him create tech in the industry that he came from. And that tech is called GreenPal. It connects 300,000 homeowners with reliable lawn pros handling thousands of jobs every day all over the US. Brian's on a mission to bring AI into one of the oldest industries out there, helping small lawn care businesses use data and automation to compete like big companies. So, from pushing a lawnmower to building a $30 million tech platform, Brian's story is all about grit, adaptation, and how old school hard work can thrive in a high tech world. So, with that said, let's dive into the episode.
Who knew I would make it this far? They hated, they never believe me. Yeah, I would never drop the ball. I know I make it look easy. Yeah, Mayweather with the defense. I don't care what a critic got to say. I got them picking up the pieces.
Well, Brian, I'm particularly excited to have you on the show, and part of the reason is I used to mow lawns growing up, and I've sort of moved past that, but you stayed with it and found a way to become very successful, but in a different way than pushing a mower, so to speak. So I'm excited to dive into all that, your story, talk about AI as well. But Brian Clayton, welcome to the show, man.
Well, thanks for having me on, guys. It's great to be here. And yeah, the lawn mowing business is an awesome business for anybody to cut their teeth on what it means to run a business. Nobody teaches any of us how to run a small business. We're not taught it in high school. We're not taught it in even business school. And so if you want to learn like 80 or 90% that goes into running pretty much any business, you can just start mowing yards because it'll teach you like how to how to run a schedule, how to do bookkeeping, how to do customer service, marketing, all of these things. And I just happened to stick with it. I stuck with my lawn mowing business for like 15 years and built it up into a small company. And then it was acquired 15 years into the journey, but got it built up to 8 figures in revenue and about 150 people. And yeah, and then after that, I took some time off and then started my current company, GreenPal, which is kind of like the Uber of lawn mowing.
Sweet. Well, let's go back in time. Um, how old were you when you started?
It was I'd like to tell you like that I naturally was gravitated toward being an entrepreneur because I don't I the reality was I was forced into it. Uh my parents would buy me like $20 soccer cleats, and they were made of plastic, and they gave me blisters, and I wanted the $100 soccer cleats in 1995, and they said no, these are just fine. And then my dad said, the neighbors, they want somebody to mow their yard. You could go do that and make $20. And I said, okay, I'll just do that. And I remember like I mowed their yard, and it took 2 hours, and I got $20, and I got paid. And I thought, this is incredible. If I just do this 5 more times, I can buy the damn cleats that I want. And that just made sense to me. I started passing out flyers around the neighborhood and had like 10 customers within a week. And I just never looked back. I just kept doing that through high school. Then I went to college, and I didn't want to like take on student loan debt. So I mowed grass all day long and went to business school at night. And then graduated college, and I started doing some like back of the envelope math. And I was like, damn, I'm going to take a pay cut if I go get a job with this degree. I might as well just like see how far I can take this little lawn mowing business. And so I took what I learned in business school and made a little business plan and started working.
I love
Can
that.
relate to that. Mine was basketball shoes, Brian. Just
Nice.
but
Even worse.
yeah. Outside of
Even
that, it was yeah. Well, guess what? The farmer down the road, he's looking for somebody to, get on the old sickle mower and drive the tractor and rake some hay. So we don't
Nice.
necessarily have the funds for it. So at 10, 11 years old, he'd come pick me up every morning and away we'd go. So yeah,
I love
I
it.
got my first taste rather young as well.
Yeah, no child labor laws out in Nebraska.
Not in Western Nebraska, that's for sure.
That's cool.
I love it.
Brian, you're from Tennessee, right?
That's right. Yeah. Grew up in a small town outside of Nashville called Murfreesboro. And that was one thing that I was really lucky about was that Middle Tennessee, the greater Nashville area, has been growing and prospering for like 30 years. It still is. And so I
Well,
kind of had
Nashville itself is like the fastest growing in the country, I
one
believe.
of, yeah, well, top, got to be top five. It just depends on how you measure it. And so I kind of had the wind at my back because there's always new neighborhoods. Eventually, when I was scaling the company, we did commercial work. And so there's new offices, shopping centers, apartments. It can be helpful to like start your business, no matter what you're doing, in a prosperous community. And so that was very lucky for me.
Now, so there had to have been an inflection point at some point because I believe you said, you started off, you're mowing the neighbors' lawns, whatever, got up to 5, 10 accounts. And then when you exited, you had 150 employees. Walk us through the inflection point of you pushing the mower and doing all the work to bringing on your first person. Like how far into business were you? I'm also curious, when did you make your business legit? Because like I had a boat detailing and repair business in high school and college. That was frankly never legit. It was all cash, not registered, insured, anything like that. I did that for like 5 years. So I'm sure you ran like that for a little bit through high school and college. Like when did you make it legit? And what was the inflection point where you started actually building a team?
Yeah, like when you're building a small business, it's kind of like almost like a video game, and you're just working every little level of the game, and every level has its own final boss, and like what got you through level one, doesn't matter about on level two, three, and four, and that's how it was with my little lawn mowing business. I would just like work 7 days a week and mow as many yards as I could, and then I realized, hey, if I paid one of my buddies, maybe we could do double the lawns, and then I could make even more money. And so I did that, and then quickly learned like hard lessons around like unit economics, and basically understood at age 15 that I was selling labor hours. And I was like, man, if it takes us 2 hours together to do this yard at this price, I'm actually losing money. And so that was a hard lesson that I learned, and did that wrong. And then I started to really kind of measure how long we were spending on each yard, and I was able to make a little bit of margin on this guy's labor. And that was like a really good lesson that I learned. And then I hired another guy, and then I guess it was probably year 3 or 4 that I had two crews going. So I would run a crew, and then another my buddy would go run their crew, and I was doing that while I was going to night school. And then by the time I graduated college, I had maybe 5 employees and doing $500,000 a year in revenue. And so then it was like, okay, if I hang, I don't really want to be a lawn guy. I actually hate the lawn mowing business, but if I really scale this, I could build something important, something that matters. And the switch from like just shooting from the hip and paying people cash, that probably happened as I was graduating college, where I was like, okay, I got to really make this legitimate now. And then you kind of go sideways for a while, because now you have all this new overhead. You have to pay accountants to kind of do things right, and so you kind of like you stair step your way into it. And that's how it was for me building the business, and that might have been like metaphorically level three. And then I really couldn't, but I was still self-employed at that point, right? It was still very much like me making it happen. If I stepped away, it would evaporate. I probably didn't truly have a business until year 5 or 6, when I realized that I wasn't actually in the lawn care business. I wasn't in the landscaping business. I was in the sales business, and I needed to like codify and build a process around connecting what it is we did with people that needed our services. And that was kind of an unlock for me that took me a while to get through.
We did a podcast episode recently with probably the most personable engineer I've ever spoken to. Usually that's an oxymoron. And that was one of the things that he leaned into. He's like, no matter what you do, whether you're an employee, a business owner, no matter what your business is, like it is sales first. You can be the best engineer, but if there aren't customers, coming in the door, it's an issue. So I resonate with that a lot. There's generally speaking, a couple different ways that you can decide to grow in terms of the direction. It's doing more, just volume of what it is that you do. So more lawns, more lawns, more lawns, and or expand the services that you provide that are relevant to the people that you're currently cutting lawns for. Which direction did
or
did
acquire.
or acquire, of course. I said generally, Landon. Come on.
I know, I know.
Uh, um, so which of those three paths, I'll add Landon's in there. Which of those three paths did you go down? Was it just more volume? Was it sort of cross-selling services, M&A, or was it all the above?
For me, it was I kind of had a chip on my shoulder that I wanted to build something that mattered at a small local level. That was something that was important. I mean, it still matters to me now building GreenPal. I want to build something important, something that matters to people. And so for me, that meant big. That meant eight figures. That meant over 100 people, and eventually got there. And I think a lot of successful people, there's something that happens in their life that just makes them like that's who they are, and they just they have a chip on their shoulder. They want to create something successful. For me, like that moment like happened over a series of moments, but I remember one time in particular, I was at my brother's bachelor party. I was like 19 years old, and I was mowing grass, and we were playing blackjack, and I remember I doubled down on like a $5 hand, and my brother's buddy said, "Hey, you sure you want to do that? That's like 2 yards." And and everybody started laughing because they knew that's how I knew that's what I did for a living. And I'm like, this guy thinks that I'm like a yard monkey, which I was. And I made a decision at that moment. I was like, I'm going to show him, and I'm going to build something big that matters. And eventually we got to a point where there's like 90 trucks going out every day all over town, and everybody knew what my business was in town, and that mattered to me. And so that I'm just going to be honest, that was the motivation. That was what got me probably through the first 7, 8 years of building the business was this chip on my shoulder, this thing inside of me that was pissed off that I just wanted to build something big. And then you realize that doesn't matter.
So
Actually,
usually then you get to the other side of it, and then it's like, all right, I don't want people to know
yeah,
necessarily what I'm doing.
yeah.
That's
You
been
you
my
get
experience
over
with
that
most of
hump.
my clients anyways.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Well, we've had him on here. He, owns a lot of laundromats or whatever. And again, not a sexy business, right? And he moved into his new neighborhood, and everybody asked him what he did, and he said he was in the sanitation business. He's just like he likes to just be low key, and
Exactly.
yeah.
Exactly. You realize that doesn't matter. And it doesn't
And the
matter.
people who care about it damn sure don't matter.
You're exactly right. And they don't understand any of it anyways. And so I had to learn that the hard way, that actually none of that matters. Actually, what does matter is now I've got like 30, 40 families that depend on this damn thing. And if I screw that up, then people aren't going to be able to make rent payments and car payments and mortgage notes and stuff. And actually I want to see these people who work in the company prosper. I want to see them show up in a better car next year. I want to see their kids going to good schools. I want to see them upgrading the house they live in, and like that matters. That actually is what matters. And so it's like much like a video game. You get to that level of the game, and you kind of evolve as a founder, as a leader, and you kind of unlock like some new fuel, I guess, and that gets you through the next couple of levels. And that's how I experienced it building my first business, and now how I experience it building GreenPal. is like as time goes on, the reason why you're like killing yourself doing this changes, and that's a good thing. Like embrace that.
Have you come across a gentleman by the name of Andy Frisella, owner of First Forum and the Real AF podcast?
Not personally, but I've heard of him.
Yeah. The only reason why I know him personally, and that's I got finger quotes up when I say that, he had like a promotional car show event that I went to here in Tampa. But I've been following his podcast for years, and his company First Form is a multi-billion-dollar workout supplement and like apparel, fitness brand. But the chip on his shoulder, similar to your story, was, growing up, is when he started the business, his friends, his family would always ask him like, "Oh, how's your little vitamin shop doing? How's your little vitamin shop doing? When you gonna get a real
When
job?"
you got to grow up.
And now he runs a multi-billion-dollar enterprise because of those comments. So it's
Yeah,
it's pretty interesting, like what your life experiences can do for you, because there's some people where they hear that and they get discouraged and they throw in the towel, and there's a lot of potential that's left because they don't use that as fuel.
exactly. Those things are, whether you realize it or not, I certainly didn't at the time. They're happening for you. They're not happening to you. Like that's the universe like forcing you to level up.
Hmm.
And that's a good thing. And looking back, I'm lucky that I was ridiculed at a young age, because that became who I was, and that got me through a lot of like of the tough years that go into building a business in
Yeah.
the first second company.
Now, when you exited your little lawn care business, just kidding. when, when you exited your lawn care business, did you already have your GreenPal ideated or launched, or was there a period of time between experiencing an exit and starting a new business?
So it was not my plan to sell the company and then start the tech company. It was something that kind of like unfolded. I knew I was like too young to retire, but I didn't really want to start another company because it was really hard. And so what I wanted to do, I didn't want to do any
We're,
of
we're
that.
laughing. We're laughing with you, not at you. Yes,
Yeah,
yes, it
it was,
is.
it was like really, really not fun. And I remember like thinking, okay, that was hard. I don't want to do that again. Particularly the exit was the hardest thing I've ever done. It was like a year of just like chewing glass every day, trying to get that deal done. And but got it done. And
I do want to unpack that, by the way.
yeah, it was not fun, but I learned a lot going through that. And so I thought, okay, I don't want to do that again. I had just got done like reading this book, The Cash Flow Quadrant by Robert Kiyosaki, and the book's really good. And like one of the quadrants is like this mysterious figure called the capitalist, and the capitalist is like this person that is just at the center of these deals, and like is just bending the world to their way by allocating capital across different things. And I thought that sounds cool. I want to do that. I want to take a little bit of this capital and put it to work. And I did that, and it was fun for like 6 months. And then things got really existential. There was like no reason for me to get out of bed early in the morning, and there was no reason for me to like read books
There was
or
no dragon to slay.
nothing, man. It was very like, and I got like out of shape personally. Like I got fat.
Probably depressed.
Yeah, it was a very strange thing that I was not prepared for. So I didn't really want to like start another company, but I thought I need to be part of a mission. I need to be part of a project, something with some smart people working in it. And so I had the idea for GreenPal, and then I like for some reason I watched The Social Network, and like in that movie, they build Facebook in like 10 minutes, and and I
Yep.
was like, man, this looks really cool. I mean, they built this thing, and it's like touching millions of people's lives, and now it's a household name. And this was like 2013, and I thought, okay, maybe I could do that. And so I knew that somebody was going to build an app that made this whole world that I knew in the lawn mowing business run much smoother, because I saw it every day running my landscaping business. People would call our office begging us, literally begging us to come mow their yard. And we no longer did residential services. We did commercial services, and we would refer them to smaller operators that were hungry for that type of business, and everybody was happy. And we were in effect this kind of creator, like this network of buyers and sellers, and we were connecting them on a local level. And so I knew the problem existed on the consumer side. I knew the problem existed on the provider side, and I thought somebody's going to build a network to make that thing run, much like Uber was doing at the time in the early days of ride sharing. So I knew somebody was going to build it. What I didn't know was like any of the tech, any of the software development, anything that goes into that. I didn't know how hard it was to like invent something from scratch and try to like get people to use it. But I knew the idea would work, and so that was the only thing that we had going for us in the early days. But I told two friends about the idea, and I said, "Hey, man, I'm thinking about starting this thing," and they said, "Well, that sounds like a great idea. I'll quit my job and we'll do that. I'll do that with you." And that gave me like confidence that maybe this was worth doing. And so we did that, and it was kind of like we did not know what we didn't know. It was very much like naivete as an asset, and we just got in the trenches and started working and paid a development shop to build this idea of an app that would connect you with lawn mowing services. That was a mistake. Wasted like a year and a bunch of money doing that, and then we had to teach ourselves how to build software, and we rebuilt the whole thing ourselves from scratch. That took another year. But fast forward like 3 years in, we had something that was working, that hundreds of people were using. And eventually we got it to where now hundreds of thousands of people use it every week.
So let's talk about that. So I think at the very end you said every week. So hundreds of thousands of consumers are using it every week. How many providers do you have on the platform?
So yeah, there's about 300,000 people that log into the app during the lawn mowing season, which is about March through November. Right now, it's not as busy, but during that season, uh, around 300,000 people log in to use it. And then on the pro side, there's 40,000 pros that use the app to get new customers. Around 2,000 of them run their whole business on it. So their entire livelihood is on the GreenPal platform.
Wow.
And that's important to us. That's really why we do what we do, because we have to create a marketplace that's thriving, that's humming, that works smoothly, that is literally like a business in a box for these small providers, because they rely on it to grow their business, to pay their rent, to pay their mortgage, to buy equipment, put kids through school. Like all of these things are now the reason why I take this very seriously and get out of bed early and give this everything I got, because I want to give these people more opportunities. So it's a kind of a similar path in my first business with my employees, but now it's my
Customers.
users of the platform.
Well, the vision just got bigger, and I love how you did something totally different from landscaping to technology, but it's also 100% related based on pain points that you experienced or saw, in the industry. Now, do you guys, I don't know if you're able to share this or not, but I'm curious. Is it like subscription to the business owner, like a subscription fee to access the platform? Do you take a percentage of like the first deal or ongoing? Like how does the
It's a revenue model.
work?
Yeah. So it works in a marketplace sense, kind of like eBay or Etsy or Airbnb, where we connect buyers and sellers, and then we take a piece of the transaction, and that ranges anywhere from 5% for vendors that are doing a bunch of volume, all the way up to 20% for vendors that aren't doing much volume, and that increases and decreases based on the volume that they're doing on the platform. And then there's some other premium tools that vendors can purchase if they want. So we have a couple different ways we make money.
Is it ongoing, Brian, or how do you
Ongoing,
monitor
yeah,
that
ongoing, yeah.
after, after somebody, what's to say they don't just say, hey, pay me cash and go that route?
That does happen. But what we have found is when a consumer calls around, leaves bunch of voicemails, and fills out a bunch of forms online, and then they can't get anybody to call them back. They download GreenPal, they get somebody to come out and mow it. What happens then is they usually don't want to go do it the old way. They don't want to leave a cash under the doormat or send a Venmo or have to reconcile this kind of thing. And then vendors, they're getting 5 or 10 new lawn opportunities every day. Now everything is accumulating in one place for them. All of their CRM, all of their route optimization, all of their
So
billing.
you're providing all of that then.
That's right. It's kind of like
That's a small price to pay for an entire back office, essentially.
you have to build. And one of the big debates in this world is like, is it better to build SaaS tools or is it better to build a marketplace? And the grass is always greener on the other side. But as a marketplace founder, I can tell you, we have to build all the SaaS tools and give it away for free to even like as table stakes to make the marketplace work. So we build a CRM, we build the route optimization, we build the marketing optimization, we build all of the billing integration and all of these things. And it's kind of like you have to do that to even have a seat at the table. But it works. It creates the lock-in on both sides of the transaction. It's kind of like if you order an Uber and then like the Uber driver stopped short and said, "Hey, if you pay me cash, I can, save you $3." You would never do that. Or if you booked like an Airbnb and then they wanted you to go around the platform, you would feel like sketchy about that. And so that's what we try to be.
That is an interesting concept that you'd feel sketched out about that because consumers have become so used to transacting on the phone. I can see how the vast majority, I mean, there's always going to be someone who takes advantage of the system, but the vast majority of folks I can see just want to keep it clean and on the app.
I was more so just thinking like if you've got a company that now you've interacted with a consumer, they say, hey, rather than next time we'll just put you on a weekly route schedule and you can just pay us direct or whatever.
That does happen. That does happen. You can only the way we deal with it is with a carrot and stick approach. So the carrot is okay if you have more ongoing customers on the platform, if you have high ratings, you get
percentage of revenue that you're taking goes down, obviously.
That's right.
And if we find out that you are doing it, we're going to boot your ass off, right?
Well, we don't even have to find out. The numbers speak for themselves. So because we're doing thousands and thousands of transactions a day, we're able to measure it. And particularly now with AI, very easily. And we can understand, okay, this vendor and this zip code only has a reorder rate of like 2 when vendors with similar ratings have a reorder rate of 10. And so something's going on. Either they stink and they're not doing a good job, or they're circumventing the platform. And regardless of which it is, we demote them and then expel them out of the platform. So now we have a way to measure these things and cleanse the platform at scale. In the early days, it was just eyeballing it. It was spreadsheets. It was just looking at it and calling people and texting people. But when you do that hand cranking, you then know what systems you need to build.
And I'm pretty sure, I don't know who else it would have been, but I'm pretty sure it was you on our intro call. And I actually went through the process on your website after we first spoke to like see what the experience was. And it was pretty slick.
Yeah, David is your ideal consumer. If he doesn't,
Nice.
if he can get that shit done from his phone, he's doing it.
Well,
My tight ass.
But what's
the mower.
what's interesting when we bought our house a year and a half ago, I asked the realtor, I was like, and Landon may make fun of me because Landon's for a lot of things is a do-it-yourself type guy. So like he enjoys mowing the lawn. For me, I'm
Fixed
like,
my washing machine last night. Thank
oh,
you very
there
much.
you go. I called someone because our water heater went out when we moved into our house, and they came and they fixed it by pressing the reset button that I didn't know was there. So
The one call he should have made to me
$25.
before he made the service call. He usually calls me first.
yeah. But like, for example, like when I like lawn care, to me is I think an important thing for most people, especially in Florida, HOAs and all that type of stuff. So, I had the realtor when we bought the house ask the seller, "Hey, who's the lawn care person? I want to talk to them to ensure that like the grass is taken care of and there isn't like a 2, 3 week delay." But I went through your process, Brian. If I'm not mistaken, when someone types in their address, you have an algorithm that basically will run an automation to, look up the lot, measure the square footage, and estimate the time to excuse me, to then be able to quote properly. Is that correct?
Yeah, we have to add value every step of the way. So in the introduction phase, we have to add value by doing all that research on the fly for service providers. So normally, to get this done, you would have to like call 4 or 5, maybe 10 of these small operators and they say, "Hey, can you mow my yard?" And they say, "Yeah, let me come out and look at it." And they got to drive out there and look at it. Maybe they might say, "Okay, hey, give me the address. I'll look it up on Google." And maybe they might quote you on the phone. Probably not. They're going to probably want to come look at it. And so it's our job to kind of like make that whole process run a lot smoother. And so when you sign up, we then take a look at your property and through a couple different ways. We look at aerial imagery from a couple different sources. We use the APIs for local tax records. We try to pull the square footage of the lot. About 90% of the time that exists, and so then we can pull that in. We then get qualitative info from you. Hey, how long has it been since you mowed it last? What are your expectations? Do you want it perfect? Do you want it just basically knocked down? And then we look at the proximity of other transactions nearby you, and we can forecast. Okay, we know that based on other transactions and the square footage and your expectations, this is the range it's going to be in. And then we show that to service providers nearby you. We text 50 of them. So rather than you having to like dial for dollars, now this system for free is pinging all of these service providers for you, checking their availability, asking them if they want it, and then telling them to submit a price. And then those prices are sent to you. You look at, okay, this is the pricing. This is what the reliabilities of these different service providers is, and how often they show up on time and what other people are saying about them. So then you go from like nothing to 5 quotes in 60 seconds. Hopefully that's our goal. And you can make an informed hiring decision with all of this data that does not exist anywhere else. So that experience is a lot easier and a lot better than the status quo. What I have found is you have to be about 10 times better than doing it the old way. And in the early days, we weren't. And that's why it was tough. We had to build in all of these systems, build in all of these ways to make it easier. And then as time has gone on, now I feel like we're getting close to that, what we're faster, cheaper, smoother, more convenient than just doing it the old way, dialing for dollars.
So, asking for selfish reasons, one of the businesses that I'm a part of, we do snow removal at lake home properties. Is this a certain software that's out there? Like, could this be done for, hey, we got to figure out the square footage of somebody's driveway and walkway? Is that something you guys have created internally, or how does that work?
There's some things we piggyback on top of. So luckily, Google developed the greatest business model in the history of mankind, and so then they started launching satellites and started looking at the aerial imagery of every square foot of the earth, and then also they drove a car around every street, and then they gave everybody that for free. And so that was a big unlock for us. Being able to see what it looks like from above and from the street, and then Bing offers this as well, so we're able to cross reference those two data points. And then what, the world of APIs, where a lot of this data exists, but it exists in like a fragmented way, and it exists in a lot of different warehouses. Being able to structure all that and pull it in and suck it in, we had to build all of that in house, but we did kind of stand on the shoulders of giants, because a lot of this stuff was already built and in place, and we were able to kind of leverage it and package it up in a way that nobody else was doing for this one particular use case. Could you do it for snow plowing? Absolutely. Now GreenPal does offer snow plowing. It's about 1% of our business, maybe less. But yes, you absolutely could build it for snow plowing, but there is not an off the shelf thing yet that you could buy. You would have to kind
Gotcha.
of hand build a lot of these things.
Maybe we
I,
talk offline on that, but yeah, that's interesting.
Now, I imagine, Brian, that within your local-ish community, when you had your landscaping business, that you were, with 90 trucks on the road, fairly well known, or at least the company was. And that can get you started in a business like GreenPal. But that's not necessarily going to get you to 40,000 providers and a few hundred hits per week during busy season. Um, was it pure like virality? Was it spending the shit ton on ads? Like, what was the thing that got you guys to truly start popping?
Yeah, I think so. To your point, my track record in the landscaping business did help a lot for a couple of reasons. One, I knew I could speak the language. I knew what the pain points were of a person that makes their living mowing yards, and so we were kind of able to start on first or second base because of that. And so, but if you build it, they will not come. And so I believe going through that, I learned that like the first 100 sales, maybe even the first 1,000 sales, need to be personally done, hand to hand combat, belly to belly. Because only in the course of doing that do you then understand how could this possibly scale, and could this possibly be done from like an inbound way or a hands off automated way. The problem is a lot of new tech founders try to start with that. They try to build the systems first and they don't hand crank it, and so they don't really know what to build, and then they build a bunch of stuff that nobody wants. So what we did is we literally like made the number we were focusing on really small. We just wanted 100 transactions per week. I knew nothing else mattered if we could not just get 100 buyers, like 100 buyers and 10 sellers to line up and do business on the platform every week. And so we just did everything we could to get that 100. And so that was dialing for dollars, that was Craigslist, Yelp, Facebook, calling these providers, pitching them on the idea of GreenPal. I did have kind of like a little bit of name recognition in Nashville at the time, building and selling my business. The business was probably top 1, 2, or 3 in the state in terms of size and brand, and people recognize that in the landscaping business. So that kind of got me
Good credibility, if nothing else.
yeah, and they wouldn't hang up the phone when you would call them and say, "Hey, this is who I am. You probably heard I sold my business. This is what I'm doing now." That would buy you a minute. And so I was able to kind of like hand crank the vendor base in the early days just through sheer like door knocking and calling these providers. And the first 500 service providers had my cell phone number, and they would call me 7 days a week about GreenPal stuff, but also just landscaping stuff and like landscaping business stuff. And so my pitch was like, hey, I'll give you free coaching on how to run a lawn care business if you just fill in the gaps that exist in this platform and use it to the best of your ability and be forgiving and just show up on time, do a good job for these consumers, tell us about bugs. And so they were kind of like building along. They were like in the trenches with us, helping us build it. And so that's how we got through that stage of the game. And we passed out door hangers to get people to use it. Like literally pass out 100,000 door hangers all over Nashville. That got us the first 300 or 400 people using the app. So now we got something that is really hard to use. It's crappy. It's buggy. It's very much like Wizard of Oz, us behind the curtain, making the magic happen with text messages, phone calls, spreadsheets. But at least we got something, and now we're getting feedback from real users on both sides of the transaction, and they're telling us the million reasons we suck, and we just really
Those are very important.
yeah. It's almost.
I mean, I like to hear them, but yeah.
And so now we're getting like this bombarded with feedback about all of the reasons why our app sucks, and so we would take all that feedback and put in it, and almost like a hospital emergency room. a hospital ER doesn't run on a queue or like a first come first serve basis. It runs on triage and who is going to die the soonest, and that's who gets seen. And that's how we ran the process building GreenPal, and really kind of still run it to this day. What are the only 2 or 3 things that really matter right now that everybody's bitching about? Let's fix those things, and then this rinse and repeat and go down the list. And that's what we did. And if we hadn't hustled up that first couple hundred users, we would never have had that live feedback, to that free R&D to get to where we could then build something that would scale.
I love that. Now, are you?
So many businesses could take that model. I mean, David and I, David is formerly in my life on the wealth management side of things. Like, I've got one of the largest like aggregators of financial reporting in our backyard in Omaha, and I'm like, yeah, their software is the one that 90% of whatever RIAs are using, but they've never like taken advantage of somebody in their own backyard and said, hey, how can we make this better? Because I'm more than willing to give direct feedback.
Yeah, if somebody
And it's like a bunch of tech nerds trying to figure out, oh, well, the advisors will like this. And it's like, why did you just push the button in that building that just changed the whole interface over here that like I was used to, and now I'm pissed,
if they got in the trenches with you, they could save maybe 10 years of wasted time. And the thing is, like, that's not fun. Nobody wants to do that. Like, everybody wants to sit behind the laptop, particularly software developers.
Work from home in their freaking pajamas.
Home,
yeah, eating Cheetos.
But what they don't understand. So we launched a tool November 3rd called WealthReach, wealthreach.ai. And with our early users that we've brought on, it's been lightning in the bottle so far, which is wonderful to experience. But our users are more than willing to share feedback with little bugs and things like that. But what's interesting is when we first get an email or a phone call with something from them, the initial response is like gut drop, like shit. They're gonna be pissed. They're gonna leave. But then we're able to fix it so quickly that it turns into an amazing experience for them because they're impressed with, oh, wow, that was fixed in an hour. That was fixed in a day. You also added this that I wasn't thinking about. So when you get that constructive feedback, if you move quickly, it's actually a net positive to the relationship. And now they feel a part of the build and they're less likely to churn because their ideas are part of the platform now. And I think it's
if you actually take them and implement them for sure. Yeah.
Right.
And you're sincere about it, especially like you probably were, Brian. It's like, look, this thing's new, right? Like, I'm being vulnerable here. You're going to shit on me for all the things that are wrong with this app, but I'm genuinely asking and appreciate and want your feedback. I think 95% of people are going to appreciate the fact you're willing to listen, as long as you're willing to implement the changes.
Yeah, it's for us, it was twofold. One, we had all these assumptions of what we thought the platform how it should run, and a lot of them were wrong. So we needed that feedback, we needed that R&D, and we needed to know we wanted to build something that people wanted to use. So that was like a big part of it. But the other part of it was we just needed the sales. Like, we needed the customers, we needed the revenue. And so there was like a customer service dynamic of it as well. Like, if you fix the thing and make them happy, they will continue to use it. And guess what? You're trying to get to 100 people. And after we got to 100, the next goal was 500. And so every single one of those bodies mattered. And literally trying to save users and re-engage them and ask them, why did you stop using it? Because a lot of times they won't tell you where you suck. You have to ask them, and you have to ask them why they stopped using your product, because that's important too. You can't build anything successful unless you have recurring customers. And so that was a big piece of it. That was a big source of free R&D and a big source of revenue in those early days, because we were self-funded. We didn't raise a bunch of money. We needed every dime we could on a monthly basis. So it's almost like two-prong. One, you need the feedback, but you also need the damn customers when you're first getting started. So that feedback is happening for you. It's not it's not somebody complaining, it's somebody helping you, if you can reframe it that way. I know it's tough, particularly with today's American consumer. They are insatiable at times, but it really is free R&D.
For sure. Now, before we just looking at the time, before we start wrapping up, I do want to get some quick insight from you, Brian. In our intro call, the topic of AI came up, and I think you're uh, getting into that space more. Are you getting into that space as it relates to integrating it into GreenPal, or is it a separate venture altogether? Or if it's a separate venture altogether, you're probably also integrating it into GreenPal. But help me understand what you're doing there.
Yeah, the way we think about AI is to close the gap on the GreenPal experience and what magic could look like. And so we try to think about what would be magical. What, like, there's a lot of things our platform can't do. And there's a lot of like places where it doesn't run smooth. For example, a lawn care service just cancels at the last minute, which happens all the time. And so now we got to run a bid process all over again, and we got to get another service in there, and then you have to like approve it, and then best case it might be this afternoon, or it could be tomorrow, and like that process upsets a lot of people. What would be magical is if somebody else just showed up and did it at the same price. And so like that's a problem that happens a lot in our platform, and we've always tried to like beat our heads against the wall about how we could solve it. And now with AI, we can close that gap. We can measure so much more data and crunch so much more numbers and build so many more things quicker to try to prevent that from happening, and then B, when it does happen, have somebody else already kind of like on deck and a soft commitment from them to take that spot if it does happen. And AI helps us close that gap where now every engineer that we have is now, if they were a B or before, now they're an A. And also me as the founder, it's enhanced my capabilities. There's a feature I use in ChatGPT called Pulse. It's part of the $200 a month plan, and this thing is like my MIT grad, my Harvard business school grad, and my consultant from McKinsey, like sitting in at the table with me every day, telling me about things that we can do to make the product run smoother. So I'm really optimistic about what AI is going to do for all businesses, particularly like marketplaces like ours. It can help you prevent a lot of negative outcomes and help close the gap between whatever it is you're doing and what magic might look like close that gap by an inch. AI can help you do that.
100%. That's a whole podcast in and of itself, but wanted to get some insight as to how you're thinking about that.
I want to know who ultimately bought your previous business.
Yeah,
Because I mean, you grew that thing to a sizable company. How did that go down?
it was so there were four companies. So you wouldn't think the landscaping business operates at that kind of scale, but it's a $99 billion industry nationwide. And so there's
It's nice recurring revenue too.
yeah. And this was 10 years ago. So it's very different now with private equity.
I love that business.
Really interested in these types of businesses.
Yeah.
Back then there was some PE, but it was more like operators that were wanting to grow.
It's aggregators, basically.
Yeah. And so there was four companies that were negotiating to purchase it. And there's like a publicly traded landscaping business. It's called Brightview. At the time, it was a different name. So they were interested in it, and then the company ended up buying it was actually a company out of Austin that had 12 other independently operating businesses throughout the United States that were in the landscaping business, but they were all under local brands. And their model was, hey, we want to keep the brand, but like centralize a lot of the overhead and implement a lot of our standardization. And so that appealed
Makes
to me
sense.
because, yeah, I mean, I still get pictures of friends and family sending me pictures of my trucks, texting them to me 10 years later, like, hey, I saw one of your trucks on the road today. And so that's fun. And so preserving the local brand was important to me. So that's why we went with them.
Love it. Love
Love
it.
it.
Thanks for that.
So, last question. Well, no, not last question, because I'll ask where people can follow along with your journey. Second to last question, about a book that's had impact on you. You chose Stephen Covey's Seven Habits of Highly Effective People. Why'd you pick that book?
It was a book I picked up about 10 years ago. I wish I had picked it up 20 years ago. It for me, it's like I'm trying to like consume less stuff and this and just focus on like three or four things that have had impact in my life and just reconsume them over and over again. It's like the answer is not in some new thing. The answer is executing something that you already know like vigorously. And so that book for me is like a simple owner's manual to how to live an effective life, but also like how to be a good founder. Like the book is geared more towards personal relationships and personal dynamics and being a good human being and living a successful like personal life. But really it does map to just what the life of a small business owner is and feels like. It's not a business book, but it really is a business manual in terms of how to be a good leader, how to be a good manager, how to be proactive, how to think differently and take responsibility for your life. Because again, nobody teaches us any of these things. Like you're
Mhm.
throwing into being a small business owner and like you're managing your first employee and like nobody's ever taught you how to manage somebody. Nobody's ever taught you how to lead anybody. And like you do it wrong for 5 years and then you get pissed off and wonder why everybody hates you. And then you go through this like personal development phase and then maybe you come across that book. That's how it was for me. I wish I had like discovered it so much earlier. And I try to read it or listen to it on audiobook every year.
Yeah, there's
It's a
I'm sure.
staple.
Yeah, Think and Grow Rich is a staple for
Oh,
me
great book. Yeah.
every January. Well, Brian, I'm glad growing up you couldn't afford cleats because look at what it turned into.
Thank God. Thank God they did not buy me those cleats because
That's
there's no telling
funny.
how my life would have been different.
Well, if I'm listening in, I want to learn more about you. I want to follow along with the journey. I need my grass cut. Where can I find you?
Yeah, yeah. GreenPal.com. Just you can go there, get free quotes, or if you're a provider, just you sign up as a service provider. And then just Google my name, Brian Clayton. Maybe throw GreenPal at the end. You'll find me everywhere, LinkedIn, Instagram. Just shoot me a message on those.
Sweet. Well, for everyone tuning in, appreciate your time and attention as always. And Brian, this was a fun episode. We may have to do a part two some point later in the year.
Awesome. David Landon, I really appreciate you guys having me on.
Thanks for
Sweet.
coming on, Brian.
Whoa. Who knew I would make it this far? They hated, they never believe me. Yeah, I would never drop the ball. I know I make it look easy. Yeah, Mayweather with the defense. I don't care what a critic got to say. I got them picking up the pieces. That mean you really playing with your life.